Hi, I would like to share some recent experiences whilst living in accommodation in London, but it will be nameless. I won't be saying where. Whilst on a master's degree, um, where I was working at the halls I was living in, and I think the title will be "Why You Shouldn't Work for Your Halls." I had like this gut feeling straight away when you meet someone and they look at you and you look at them, and there was like 3 or 4 seconds of just like looking at each other, and I'll never forget it. And I was like, I don't know if I can trust this person. And yet, strangely enough, within days it was um, offered to me. I was offered a part-time position within the office at the halls, and of course anyone that's ever lived in London knows how expensive it is, and there is so much pressure to find work and to find work quick. And I thought, you know what, I'll take it, even if I don't feel, right about it, because at least if I have that, I have a stable income. It's not going to be a lot, but there's an income coming in, and I can say I've been working if I choose to find work elsewhere, or if you know I have a period of I have worked from the minute I got there to the minute I left. And so yeah, I took it and thought, oh, it's only one day, it's for 4 hours. I can find other work. There'll be evenings where I'll be free. There's of course there's retail, and of course there's work um, from BA, or if you do hospitality events. London is like London's great because there's so much variety of work. I was working all until February of this year. So up until I left before the coronavirus epidemic, before it became so out of control, and so I'm very lucky, really. So the part-time office role was covering duties like answering the telephone, receiving post, um, being responsible for um, inquiries regarding money, um, paying rent, fees of other residents in the halls. And I noticed that it wasn't covering enough, so I took on extra work at the halls, and I was also a warden, and so a warden would patrol in the evenings when the office hours were closed. And so if anyone was wanting a parcel, if anyone was wanting um, a vacuum, anyone wanting something from the office, I would be responsible for that, along with a small group of people who also lived at the was a residence. And so that helped sort of cover food, doing those two roles. But I noticed that paid more than the office role, because the office role was only 4 hours, and I found that quite disappointing, because you do a lot, but it seems to um, I could have easily just taken the warden role and had be earning more money than doing the two roles, because the office role had slight more responsibility during the because it was during the day and not everyone could be free. Yeah, it was a real struggle because it wouldn't cover it. It's hard enough just doing that as it is, and then on top of that, charging doing a master's degree is is something that I think, looking at it now, um, it's they're great things to do. They're great things to help push people into new directions. They can you can study one thing as a BA and go into something else as an MA or a master, or a master's of a science, and they're fantastic opportunities. But I feel like they do take advantage of people, especially people who are almost desperate or 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 mm, or have faith or somewhat naive in not knowing the difference between doing a BA and a master's, because a BA you have a student loan that will cover your rent, whereas you don't get any cover for your rent. In a master's, you only get any loan that will cover your tuition fee, and it barely covers that. So you're working like twice as much, and your income is your outgoing is is even more, especially if you're living in a major a main city or a major city. And I found it extremely and extremely hard to do, and I was willing to do it because I was really enjoying this new area that I was going into. I was going into psychology, so I was changing from a background in a creative field to a more work orientated field, so that I had like um, these two paths to go down, but it was at a cost. And I felt that that the that this particular halls of residence was taking advantage of this the young people that were probably in similar situations that I was in, where you've left uni and it's been like you've done retail for a year and you've been applying for the whole of that time in a field that you wanted to go down, and then you either get an interview and they say, what, come back when you've got more experience, or you're not right for this role, even though you've got experience in your BA, and then you try something else, and then they say, well, why are you here? And then you have to then sort of backtrack and say, well, I'm here because I was doing this and I didn't get this, and then they, people kind of trip you up in interviews and say, well, if you don't really want this, then you shouldn't really be applying for it. But you need, it's not, life's not easy. Like you gotta sort of figure things out in your own way, and making a decision can be hard enough. And then you have sort of people saying no. Then you end up in positions where, oh, you know what, I will do a different course, or I'll take the risk and take something else because I'm having all of these no's. I would rather do something else now. It's been like 3 years or 4 years since leaving uni. You feel a different person. Maybe you don't want to do that BA, you don't want to follow the BA route anymore, and you're very willing to try something else. And I felt like this particular hostel residence took advantage of people in my particular situation, and that's why I felt when I first met the people that worked in the office, I was like, they like they know, I didn't even have to say, like, they know, like, I've probably not ended up in what I was training in or what I was working in, and that I've ended up in their control, and at times it felt quite controlling and coercive, and you just kind of feel somewhat deflated. You get an opportunity and you think, wow, this is really good, and then it's kind of at a cost, and it's not an easy pill to swallow. A hard one to It's a hard one to sort of figure out, because you can do everything right by a book, but some people aren't happy, and I felt that in you know, for particular situations, I felt that to this particular manager that I was always in the wrong. Like there was nothing I could do that was good enough, or there was nothing I could do that was right, and it was the same one that I had that gut feeling about. And so I kind of put the two and two together. I was like, I feel like that they've had this before. Like there's got to be like young people that are coming, like young, you know, young professionals that are sort of willing to like do the same thing as I am at any cost, and then they're you're earning every penny you can, and then they take that and more from what you're earning to live there, and so it's just this trap. It's just this like endless spiral of you'll never be able to financially get out of what you're in, and I just don't think that's very fair, especially when you've got other other sort of training or other things that you're in, but financially it was just not viable, and yeah, so I think there's going to be other people that are similar to me, and I would love to hear from people who have either gone to university and not managed to get work in the field, or people that have returned to university and been quite disappointed in how either they've had mistreatment or that they felt that it was not worth their time, or if you've had a similar story, if you've had someone that knows that you're willing to work every hour that you can to pay for a flat in any city, and they're just taking advantage of you in any form, in any way. I'd love to hear from you. So thank you for watching. Thank you.